Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me, it's your old pal, the Original Gamer. And what are we here looking at today? Well, what I'm looking at here today is the AtariMax Ultra SD for ColecoVision and Atom. What is this, you ask? Well, what this is this is a cartridge you plug into an actual real ColecoVision. It's a single cartridge that uses an SD card. You know, these things, these little things you put in your cameras and stuff, right? And you can load up this SD card with the games that used to be on cartridges. They call those ROMs or ROM images. You can load up your SD card with ROM images. You pop this cartridge into your ColecoVision, and then you can play a library of ColecoVision cartridges, all from this single cartridge. So this is a pretty cool device. This is made by AtariMax. You can get it on their website. I will put a link to their website in the description to this video. Alright, so what you end up with is you boot into like a menu screen here, and this menu screen will show you the different folders on the SD card. The folder that comes preloaded, so when you buy this cartridge, you get the cartridge, you get an SD card that comes with it, and on the SD card is some software already there, and there's a folder here that's called ColecoVision Bonus, and they actually give you two games that come with this. One of the games is actually Mario Brothers. So Mario Brothers, very popular game from the 80s, right? Mario Brothers was kind of like the game that came after Donkey Kong before we got into Mario World and Mario Land and Super Mario and all that kind of stuff. So Mario Brothers was kind of like the game. And look how good the graphics are too. This is a really good port of this, right? So Mario and Luigi, right? So it comes with the Mario Brothers games, right? So it comes with a couple of free games. The other thing it comes with is a utility where you can update the software in the cartridge itself. So if the software ever needs to get updated, there's a utility. You can download the update from the AtariMax website, stick it on the SD card, run the utility, and it'll reprogram the card. And this is the same thing if you've ever flashed a BIOS in your computer, if you've ever updated your phone or your iPad or whatever. It's kind of the same process, right? It downloads it, does the update, it reboots, and now it's got the latest software. So the system is reprogrammable. There's also a folder in here that was called 32K ROMs, and this is the folder that I loaded up with ROMs I got off the internet. Now, I'm not going to sit here and condone where to get software and how to get the software, because it's a slightly gray area of you know, what's the right way to do things, but most of these programs are more than 20 years old, some of them more than 30 years old, so probably, you know, the reality is that there's no way you could legitimately buy these things anywhere anyways, because they're all long gone things. But there are places you can go on the internet where you can get ROMs for various systems, right? So let's just take a look at some random ROMs in here. I've got something like over 200 games on this cartridge, and it's taking up next to no space on that SD card, right? So Centipede, right? Centipede's a great Atari game. Here's the irony of all this, right? So ColecoVision came out, kicked Atari's butt, because Atari 2600 was one of the first home game systems. ColecoVision was like the first next generation game console. Kicked the living crap out of Atari. And so what does Atari do? Atari starts making games to play on the ColecoVision, but the ColecoVision had much better graphics and sound than the Atari did, but of course it comes out a few years later, and as you all know, technology gets better over time. Even back in the 80s it did, right? So if I press a button here to start this, you're gonna see how good, I'll do the standard difficulty here, how much better the graphics are, right? And this is a really good version of Centipede. I've never actually seen this version before. So this is Atari's Centipede as played on the ColecoVision. There's a reset button on the cartridge, so you can reset the cartridge, and then I think just reset your ColecoVision, right? And then you can go back and load in more games, right? So I got a ton of games on here now. I am looking forward to playing, you know, games on the ColecoVision. So let's close out this video with, you know, obviously everybody knows Donkey Kong was like the launch title, and it was the thing that put ColecoVision on the map, blew everybody's mind, right? But another great title for ColecoVision was Zaxxon, right? So Zaxxon was a really cool game in the arcade, and it was very impressive to have this game. I'm gonna do the most difficult difficulty level, right? It was really impressive to have this game on a home game system, right? This was considered state-of-the-art graphics and animation, you know? This was ColecoVision's Zaxxon. Zaxxon, Zax off, right? And so by purchase, on the hardest difficulty, apparently you run out of fuel very quickly. Note to self. Yeah, so grab, and it actually goes faster too. It scrolls a lot faster. So it's a faster moving game, and it's a faster fuel drainer. But yeah, so this is Coleco's Zaxxon. This, dude, you get the idea, right? So the AtariMax XD cartridge is the single cartridge that you need to be able to play basically every single ColecoVision game ever made in the history of ColecoVision, right? So here's my trusty ColecoVision right here. This is an actual real ColecoVision that I got just recently. And you can still get these things on eBay. You can get a decent ColecoVision system depending on how you look and where you find it, but definitely you can get a ColecoVision for in the neighborhood of about $100. Sometimes you can get it less. Sometimes you can get one with a stack of games for maybe $150. They're reasonably priced. The neat thing about old systems is that old technology just seems to last. You know, you can't get a new computer to last 5 years, but a 35-year-old computer, a 35-year-old game console. I've got so many things I bought on eBay where the people say, well, this is untested. We don't know if it works because we don't even know how to plug it into our TV to test it. So you're buying this as is. But I haven't bought anything off of eBay yet as far as a vintage retro item that hasn't worked. You know, I got a ton of old Tandy color computers. They all work. I've got Atari consoles. I bought Sega consoles. I bought stuff and they all work because the old stuff just seems to work. So here's the problem, right? You spend maybe $100 on a console. All right, that's a reasonable price. But now I want to play games. Well, and that's when it starts to get expensive. If you want to try to purchase a bunch of cartridges on eBay, even though you can sometimes buy a box of cartridges for maybe $50, it's really hard to get a good collection of games. So what a cartridge like this does, this AtariMax cartridges, is it kind of bridges the gap between the physical and the virtual, where, you know, some people will play these games on an emulator. You can download these ROMs, you can play them on an emulator, which is software you can run on a modern computer that pretends to be the old systems, and you can play old games on a new computer, and that's fun because it's retro. But if you want to play on the real thing, I mean, there's nothing like this incredibly Horatius controller that ColecoVision envisioned. I don't know what they were smoking. I don't know what board meeting happened when they said, hey, I got a really good idea. Let's make this wonky disc thing that is nothing like a real joystick. Let's put the buttons on the side where they're completely non-ergonomic and cause your hands to cramp and pain. And let's make this wonky piece of crap and put it on our state-of-the-art system. I don't know who designed this thing, but you haven't lived until you've played on a ColecoVision controller, or like an Atari 5200 controller, or an Atari 78 controller, where some jackasses just decided we're going to make this god-awful, crazy contraption that was not intended for human hands, and you got to try to play games on it. That is when the struggle was real, kids. Right? So if you want a true retro feeling and true retro experience, get yourself a real game console and buy the AtariMax Ultimate SD cartridge for your ColecoVision, and you're going to get 2 free games with it. You can search the internet for ROMs, and you can load it up with ROMs, and you can play hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of classic ColecoVision games for a very small price to pay. You could buy a brand new used ColecoVision and the AtariMax cartridge and probably get a handful of cartridges, and it would cost you well under $300, and you'll be able to play somewhere in the neighborhood of, I guess, about 200 games. So it's actually cheaper than buying an Xbox if you're into, you know, playing on real retro stuff. And you can play these things on your TVs, right? And so it used to be that you had the switch box, and you had these little switch boxes to switch between channel 3 and 4 and stuff like that. But nowadays, you can buy a little doohickey like this. I'll hold this up, right? And so what this does is this screws into the back of your cable TV input, and then it's just got the little input there that you plug in the cable. So that cable that you used to plug into your switch box to switch on and off, you just plug it in straight into one of these guys here. I'll hold it up here to this camera. Right, gold-plated RCA female to F male adapter. This one came from Radio Shack, right? You can get them just about anywhere. You can get these things for about $5. You plug this into a modern television, and then you can plug any old computer or game system into your TV, switch your TV to channel 3 or channel 4, and boom, you are up and running. So if you want to test the retro waters, I would say definitely start with an emulator. If you like playing the old games and you want a piece of history, a piece of nostalgia, a piece of, you know, classic gaming, you know, awesomeness, then grab yourself a ColecoVision and get yourself the AtariMax SD cartridge, the ultimate SD cartridge. You gotta properly call that thing. Load it up with software and play your heart's content. That's my advice for you. I am the original gamer, ColecoVision. I hope you enjoyed this little preview presentation. It also comes with a nice little instruction book here. It tells you where to do, how to get to the website. They also list some of their other products here. They've got one for the Atari 5200 game system as well. So I think that's going to be my next thing, is looking for an Atari 5200 on eBay and getting an AtariMax cartridge for that and playing some awesome Atari games too. So anyways, I have babbled and rambled long enough. I have been the original gamer, ColecoVision, with this preview of the ColecoVision AtariMax Ultimate SD cartridge for your ColecoVision and Atom computer. I hope you liked it. I'm now going to start playing these games and recording a lot of videos, so stay tuned to my YouTube channels for gameplay videos of over 200 ColecoVision games. Until then, I'll see y'all next time. Peace out, keep on gaming, and bye-bye, everybody.